Good evening, welcome, and thank you for joining us for the Greenwich Village Society for Historic Preservation's 37th annual meeting and the 2017 Village Awards that follows. I'm Art Levin, president of the Society, and I'd like to thank the New School for once again affording us the use of this wonderful auditorium. Oh, now to some business before we have the fun of the award ceremony. We have some work to do. I call on Alan Sperling, the Society's Secretary-Treasurer, for confirmation that the notice of the annual meeting has been provided in accordance with our bylaws and that a quorum of GVSHP members are in attendance. Alan?
Mr. President, I am pleased to so concur.
Thank you, Alan. I now call the 37th annual meeting to order. Next, I'd like to introduce Mary Ann Arisman, a trustee and co-chair of the nominating committee, to present the slate of renewing and new trustees. Mary Ann.
Thank you. GVSHP's nominating committee is entrusted with the task of searching out new members for our Board of Trustees and confirming the continued engagement of current trustees whose term is due for renewal. It is now with great pleasure that I present the slate of trustees recommended by GVSHP's nominating committee to be voted on by all GVSHP members this evening. All dues-paying members received a bookmark, which I left on the table, but you all have your bookmarks, I hope, when you entered to indicate your vote. When I call for the vote, please raise your voting bookmark in the air. I present to you the slate of trustees renewing for a 3-year term. These candidates have already served on the GVSHP Board of Trustees and are renewing their candidacy. For those who are here, please stand when I say your name. Richard Blodgett, Kyung Choi Bordes, Cassie Glover, Anita Isola, Justine Leguizamo, Leslie Mason, Ruth McCoy, Andrew Paul, Robert Rogers, and Alan Sperling. All in favor of this slate? Against? The slate is approved. Next, I'm pleased to present 2 new candidates for a 3-year term for the GVSHP Board. Jessica Davis is a member of GVSHP's Development and Membership Committee and has served on the Annual Awards Committee for several years. John Lamb served on this year's Awards Committee and has served on GVSHP's Preservation Committee for the past 2 years. All in favor of these 2 candidates? Thank you. Against? The slate is approved. Thank you. I'd also like to take a moment on behalf of the Board of Trustees and all GVSHP members to thank one of our longest-serving trustees who is stepping down from the board this year. Betsy Eli has served for 26 of the 37 years GVSHP has been in existence. She was board president for 2 years, chaired the House tour for 7 years, and served on just about every other committee of GVSHP. We owe her a tremendous debt of gratitude for her leadership and for her gracious and dedicated service. Thank you, Betsy. Now back to Art.
Okay, a little more business before the fun. Thanks a lot to Mary Ann and all the nominating committee for their thoughtful work. It's really important work that they do. And my really sincere thanks to all of the trustees, past and present, each of whom individually and collectively have contributed to the Society's success in the pursuit of our mission. And finally, my acknowledgement to all of you, our members and friends whose generous and steadfast support has made it possible for us to be effective advocates for the community. All members in attendance have received a copy of the 2016 Audited Financial Report and Membership Report when you registered at the check-in desk. If you've not received one, there'll be more there for you when you leave, so please pick up a copy if you don't have it. It's now my pleasure to invite our Executive Director, Andrew Berman, to the podium to present his annual report of the Society's accomplishments. Andrew, we're proud to say, is celebrating his 15th year as our Executive Director.
Thank you very much, Art, and good evening, everyone. I want to also welcome you to what is consistently one of my favorite nights of the year, GVSHP's annual meeting and Village Awards. First of all, I want to also extend my thanks to the New School, who is our co-host for the evening, and to our wonderful awards committee, especially our co-chairs Catherine Schoonover and Tom Burchard, for their terrific work in selecting this year's honorees from hundreds of worthy nominations. I'd also like to thank and acknowledge GVSHP's incredibly hardworking staff: Sam Moskowitz, Linnell Stevens, Sarah Bean Atman, Harry Bubbins, Chelsea Dowell, and Matthew Morowitz, who, by the way, are all outside working, but I'm sure appreciate your acknowledgement of the tremendous work that they do, and also all of the GVSHP trustees here tonight for all of their hard work that they do throughout the year. So before we get to our amazing awardees, it's my honor to provide you with a review of GVSHP's activities and accomplishments over the past year. This has been a real banner year for GVSHP in many ways, accomplishing goals in some cases 15 years in the making, and surpassing many prior high watermarks for the organization. But in light of everything going on in our city and our country, it's also been a year in which our work has never seemed quite so urgent and necessary. First, some of the good news. Our benefit house tour this past May was far and away our most successful ever, and even a little rain couldn't dampen it. As always, proud and welcoming homeowners came together with generously supported businesses and individuals, an incredibly hardworking benefit committee, and over 130 volunteers to put on an event showcasing one-of-a-kind spaces open for one day only to a few hundred of our best friends. This year's house tour raised about 25% more than any prior year and about 20% of GVSHP's annual budget. Thank you to everyone who participated in or supported that Herculean effort in any way. Membership support for GVSHP also grew healthily, with a record 1,573 paying members at the end of our most recent fiscal year, up 10% from the prior year, totaling $723,000 in giving from individuals. So far this year, our membership numbers are already up 10% over last year, while our membership income is up over 45%. We're hopeful that this positive giving trend will continue throughout the year. Support came to GVSHP in many other forms as well. This year, the estate of famed Village Voice photographer Fred W. McDara allowed us to sell prints of several of his iconic images to raise funds for the Society. Local stores like Exit 9 Gift Emporium donated a portion of their sales on Tuesdays to GVSHP, while a supportive property owner gave us a space in his building on 13th Street to turn into a pop-up GVSHP storefront in support of our preservation efforts. This is just the tip of the iceberg of the generosity we experienced this year, from graphic designers and illustrators to photographers and caterers, and we are truly thankful for all of these wonderful and very generous contributions. Now, speaking of wonderful businesses, GVSHP continued to support and celebrate our many small and independent businesses this year with our Business of the Month program, now in its third year. This has been a terrific way for GVSHP and our neighbors to connect with and support these local entrepreneurs and institutions that contribute so much to the character of our neighborhoods. Our 12 businesses this past year ranged from a West Village clock and watch repair shop to a NoHo photography bookstore, from an East Village Indian wares purveyor to a South Village hat seller, with an independent pharmacy, a chess shop, and a family-run barbershop thrown in for good measure. Many of these businesses have partnered with GVSHP on both advocacy efforts and our programming to highlight and celebrate our neighborhood's history. In the past year, GVSHP conducted over 60 such programs, 8 of which were for members only, but the remainder of which were almost all free and open to the public. These ranged from lectures on political murals in the East Village to walking tours of holiday storefronts in the West Village. They included panel discussions about zoning and about the role of women in preservation. And they included discussions of building types as diverse but as typical of our neighborhoods as townhouses and squats. This past year, we also continued to grow our highly popular historic plaque program, done in partnership with the Two Boots Foundation. We added markers to the studios of Jean-Michel Basquiat in NoHo and of sculptor and art collector Chaim Gross on LaGuardia Place. We will be adding our 10th plaque 2 weeks from tonight at 6 p.m. at 27 Cooper Square, so please join us for that wonderful unveiling as well. Education efforts such as these remain at the core of GVSHP's mission. This includes our children's education program, which again this year served over 1,000 young people in our city schools, regardless of need, as well as our continuing education program for brokers, conducted with the help of the GVSHP Brokers Partnership, which helps ensure that those involved with the sale of properties in our neighborhoods are also aware of their rich histories and the value of preservation. This past year, we added 2 new oral histories to our existing online collection of nearly 40 preservation pioneers, artists, architects, and community leaders. The new subjects were Peter Ruda, the wonderful Westbeth artist who passed away in late 2016, and Otis Kidwell Berger, who rented a room in her home to Jane Jacobs while she wrote Death and Life of Great American Cities. Berger threw parties in the village in the 1950s attended by the likes of Norman Mailer and is the great-granddaughter of villager and noted abolitionist Sidney Howard Gay. Over the last year, we also completed about 10 other oral histories, which we are excited to roll out in the coming months, so stay tuned. As with our oral histories, GVSHP sought to reach and educate the public with all the tools available to us. Over the past year, we joined Instagram and grew our Facebook and Twitter following by about 40% each. We added 36 new videos to our YouTube page, which garnered nearly 10,000 views. And for the second year in a row, our programs got an even larger viewing via video on YouTube than they did in person, further broadening the reach of our educational efforts. We also expanded our online historic image archive with scores of new images, including collections focused on the Meatpacking District and Far West Village, Sheridan Square, lost buildings of the East Village, and neighborhood mainstay Veselka. At the beginning of this year, GVSHP took on a new educational project by launching our ever-expanding civil rights and social justice map, charting more than 100 locations throughout the village, East Village, and NoHo, where significant contributions to the struggle for equality for African Americans, women, the LGBT community, immigrants, and Latinos took place. Now, more than ever, we found that there was an incredible thirst for information about and appreciation of these historic movements, and a recognition of how important and precious they are. Fortunately, there are few places on earth with as rich a civil rights or social justice legacy as the village. And at GVSHP, we consider it a sacred part of our mission to highlight and celebrate our neighborhood's role in embracing and nurturing immigrants, innovators, and outsiders, and breaking new ground in the arts, civil rights, and social justice movements. In that tradition, GVSHP has always sought to broaden the scope of historic preservation. This year, we released a report entitled Expanding Boundaries, Preserving History, Celebrating All, which highlighted our successful efforts to secure landmark designation for the city's first and so far only historic districts based upon immigrant history. Our cities and country's first landmarks based upon LGBT history. New York City's first historic districts based upon countercultural history. Some of the city's only landmarked affordable housing developments, and our first historic district to honor and recognize the history of one of New York's first and once its largest African-American community, which was found right here in Greenwich Village. At GVSHP, pushing boundaries is not merely something we remember, but something we continue to do every day. Nowhere is this more apparent than in our advocacy efforts, and this past year was full of some incredible triumphs and some bitter frustrations. We capped a 15-year effort to secure landmark protections for the entire South Village in December when we got the third and final phase of our proposed South Village Historic District landmarked. This 10-block, 160-building district protects a rich but vulnerable collection of row houses, tenements, and institutions connected to our city's immigrant history, some of which had been recently purchased by developers, including Jared Kushner, and might not have been much longer for this world. The designation came after years of resistance by the city and was approved even over the opposition of the Real Estate Board of New York and the New York Archdiocese. This designation brings to over 1,250 the number of buildings GVSHP has helped get landmarked in our neighborhoods, including 11 new historic districts or historic district extensions and more than 40 individual landmarks. And I want to make a special note to say that I'm particularly pleased to have City Council Member Corey Johnson with us here tonight because please do stand up, Corey. This particular effort, which, as I said, was 15 years in the making, would not have been possible without the council members' staunch advocacy, so thank you very much. But this was only one piece of a larger package of victories we fought for and won. When the city proposed authorizing the first Hudson River Park air rights transfer to a development on the St. John's Terminal site on West and Houston Streets, we insisted that traffic-generating big box and destination retail stores planned there must be eliminated, and that the entire rest of the Greenwich Village waterfront must be granted protections from ever receiving any air rights transfers from the park. I'm happy to report that we got them both. This not only protected the surrounding South and West Village from the deluge of traffic the development might have otherwise spawned, but ensured that the Greenwich Village waterfront would be safe from the flood of development which could have been generated by the 1.5 million square feet of air rights from the Hudson River Park, which the state legislature allowed to be transferred into our neighborhoods in 2013. I want to thank and acknowledge everyone who was a part of that incredibly important and successful effort. And here as well, I'd like to particularly acknowledge City Council Member Corey Johnson for helping to make that possible. There were other important victories too. We fought off an attempt to secure approvals from the Landmarks Preservation Commission to add a ludicrously oversized addition to 8589 Jane Street, including two 80 to 90 foot tall glass and concrete towers as part of the conversion of this pair of modest low-rise commercial buildings into a single-family mansion. Instead, a renovation and restoration of the buildings with much more modest additions was approved, which we believe will blend in respectively with their West Village surroundings. And I think a picture says is worth 1,000 words here. We had victories at the Board of Standards and Appeals as well. On West 14th Street and 8th Avenue, we defeated an attempt to secure a zoning variance to supersize a new development planned on that corner, which would have allowed it to grow about 20% taller than zoning restrictions allow. On East 14th Street, we also defeated a zoning variance that would have allowed a planned development on the former post office site between First Avenues and Avenue A to grow 50% larger and 25% taller than zoning allows. Following these victories, GVSHP held a forum on the BSA on the zoning variance process, and we supported legislation subsequently passed by the City Council and signed into law to make the BSA more transparent and more responsive to the public, and to hold developers more accountable for the information they provide as part of the zoning variance process. Thank you very much. We spent much of the past year also keeping at bay the latest attempts by a developer to get around a deed restriction and turn the former PS64 Charas El Bohio Cultural Center in the East Village into a fake dorm. After we held a rally on the steps of City Hall and pointed out the similarity of what was being planned there to the shameful and scandalous undoing of the deed restrictions nearby at Rivington House, the city appeared to back away from approving the plans, thus keeping the building safe for now. Thank you very much. A little further west, we celebrated this winter when the iconic mosaic lampposts were restored and returned to their rightful home on Astor Place. As part of the renovation and expansion of public space around that intersection and Cooper Square. GVSHP worked hard to help see these beloved folk art pieces given a permanent home as part of the new Astor Place, after their fate had been in doubt for a considerable period of time. Now, on the subject of new spaces, GVSHP spoke up in support of a proposal to name the new Greenwich Village Middle School at 75 Morton Street for Jane Jacobs. Who better, we argued, to serve as an inspiration for young minds than the woman who taught us to challenge conventional thought, to fight for the future of your community, to rely upon observation rather than blindly following authority, and that the free flow of ideas and interactions between different kinds of people made for safer, healthier, and more successful societies. And speaking of speaking up, GVSHP led the charge to get the Landmarks Preservation Commission to undo a new rule which would have given the public mere hours to find revised applications for changes to buildings being heard by the commission and submit comments before a decision was made. Thanks to our efforts and our allies, again, Councilmember Johnson, City Councilmember Rosie Mendez, and a broad array of preservation groups, that window is now days, not hours, allowing a real opportunity for public participation in the landmarks review process. Providing the public with the information and knowledge to participate in the decision-making process about the future of our neighborhoods is, in fact, one of GVSHP's top priorities and our most important duties. Toward that end, every day, GVSHP monitors more than 6,500 building lots in our neighborhood for construction or demolition plans, and more than 3,500 landmark properties for applications for changes to historic buildings. We notify the public of important applications and how they can get involved. In the last year, we reviewed and shared with the public 79 applications for major changes to landmark properties in our neighborhood, weighed in when appropriate, and urged the public to do the same. Of course, having the opportunity to weigh in through a public process does not guarantee satisfaction with the outcome. And this year, we had more than our share of unsatisfying decisions handed down by the city. At 11 Jane Street, we were able to get the size of the proposed development on a landmark block reduced and the design changed. But we were shocked when the Landmarks Preservation Commission approved a revised version of the proposal, which we thought was still too large and which looked more like a Motel 6 than an appropriate addition to a historic West Village block. And at 145 Perry Street, we were stunned when the commission approved, over our strenuous objections, a proposed marble-clad mega mansion that looked like it had been dropped on the West Village straight from Rodeo Drive. And these were not the only disappointments to come out of City Hall this past year. The Landmarks Preservation Commission went back on 2008 determinations of landmark eligibility for the 1890 Beaux-Arts tenements at 112-120 East 11th Street and the 1842 row house at 264 East 7th Street, and refused to protect these buildings when demolition plans were filed. Sadly, over our protests, the 5 11th Street buildings have now been demolished. to be replaced by a 120-room hotel being built by a political ally of and campaign contributor to the mayor. On East 7th Street, however, there may still be a happy ending. Following the negative publicity around protests against the planned demolition of the building, the owner was convinced to sell it to a new owner who, they say, intends to preserve the historic house. GVSHP will continue to keep a watchful eye on this site. The final outcome remains similarly to be determined in what may be GVSHP's largest and most urgent ongoing effort, seeking zoning or landmark protections for the heart of our neighborhood between 5th and 3rd Avenues, Union Square and Astor Place, where 300-foot-tall towers and oversized hotel and office developments are sprouting up at an alarming rate. GVSHP has been fighting for several years to get the mayor to adopt our proposed zoning changes for the area that would protect its residential character, prevent oversized development, and help protect and promote affordable housing. But the mayor has stubbornly refused to adopt it, allowing one after another planned tower to move ahead here, and permanent and in some cases affordable housing to be demolished to make way for hotels, office buildings, and high-rise condos. Now the situation will either get a whole lot worse or a whole lot better. The mayor is seeking to build a tech hub on a city-owned site on 14th Street. That project would help startups and small businesses, but would also accelerate the movement of the tech industry to this area between Union Square and Astor Place, which is in part fueling the overdevelopment wave we are facing. But, and this is a big caveat, the mayor's tech hub plan also requires the approval of the city council. And GVSHP has asked for and gotten the commitment of our longtime ally and supporter, Councilmember Rosie Mendez, who represents that area, that she and the city council will not approve the tech hub unless it is accompanied by these long overdue protections for the surrounding neighborhood. Now, Rosie is term limited out at the end of this year, so we've also reached out to candidates for that city council seat, asking for a pledge from all who participated in our preservation forum for city council candidates this spring that they would only support the tech hub if the neighborhood got the zoning protections it needed. I am happy to say that all of the candidates who participated agreed to do so. Through rallies, community meetings, and letter-writing campaigns, we've built broad support for this position and for our proposal, which may be our last chance to save this area from irreversible and overwhelming outsized development. We intend to spend a great deal of time and resources over the next year working to bring this plan to fruition. So as you can see, GVSHP continues to make incredible strides, preserving, documenting, and educating about more of what makes our neighborhoods so special. But we also have our work cut out for us like never before. Our organization is growing and expanding, but so are the challenges we face. But I'm confident that with all of you in our corner, we will continue to win, even against the most incredible of odds. So thank you very much, and please enjoy the rest of the evening.
And now it's my pleasure to introduce Bob Holman, our host for the 2017 Village Awards ceremony. Bob is a village resident, poet, activist, and friend of GVSHP, dedicated to advancing the art of poetry. He's been involved in more poetry projects and organizations than I could possibly mention, having only the rest of the evening to do it, including the St. Mark's Poetry Project, the Nuyorican Poets Cafe, Bowery Arts and Science, and Bowery Poetry Club. Bob Holman has won dozens of awards, including being a 2011 Village Award winner. I'd like to call on Bob Holman.
How's everybody doing? Whoa, there she is. How many of you been over to IFC and seen Citizen Jane, Battle for the City? If you haven't, it's still showing. Highly recommended. You got to see this film. In this depressing time, here is a little bit of sunshine, you know, as you see the battle that Jane fought so that we could all be here tonight. And I wrote a poem for her. It's in the Greenwich Village Stories, and that's the way we're going to kick it off here. It's called Village. I live in the village, not just any village, not just every village, where the city becomes a village. That's my village. Where the intercontinental becomes the neighborly experiential. That's my village. Uptown, downtown, low down, no town. That's the place that's home, sweet hometown. The village is where I live. Jane Jacobs is my patron saint. She lived it with her apron paint. She made the stuff that's too obvious to see the definition of reality. A mix, a mess, a mishigas. Some trees and cement, some mental floss, to let ideas drip like faucet, honey trees grow in your bedroom closet. So as you walk down these concrete paths, making your tantric plans to evanesce the globe, always centered on this place's energy rocket, why, that's simply the pulse of living here. All the lands and all the pieces, peoples and all the dream boats behind the blinking windows of these stacked buildings. The population froths in imagination syncopation, utopic and grand, elegantly funked and plastered. It's a village you're living in, all the way down, hometown, lowdown, mighty squat of humanness. The village is where we live. Yeah. So here's the gravy. This year, the awards committee of the Greenwich Village Society for Historic Preservation recognizes 7 Village Award recipients chosen from hundreds of nominations received from the public. Put yours in tonight for next year. We got a caretaker of a West Village landmark who has provided a rich array of educational programming and resources to the surrounding community for 18 years. An East Village culinary and community mainstay since 1938 that has rebounded from incredible adversity to serve us, the hungry public. They don't even know the name yet, and they're applauding. A grassroots organization, they know the name, a grassroots organization of social justice warriors celebrating their 40th year of fighting for the rights of the underserved and overlooked. A small business serving up a slice of authentic Paris in the heart of Greenwich Village. Woohoo! A treasured East Village small business that for over 30 years has provided thoughtfully curated, unique, and handcrafted items and gifts for children. One of our nation's greatest cultural institutions, which began its life by breathing new life into an empty and abandoned building over on Lafayette Street, where it still thrives 50 years later. And a trio of spaces and entities that have taken sadly abandoned buildings and spaces and turned them into a much-needed medical center, park, and AIDS memorial. It's an honor to present our 2017 Village Awardees. So here we go. Our first awardee, Frank Colarius. Woo-woo! Frank has been branch manager of the Jefferson Market Library for the past, I see that spider. I remember when the Village Halloween Parade started and that spider got stuffed up there. Where else are you going to keep it? Not in Ralph Lee's apartment. For the past 18 years, his motto is just say yes, and says there's always something new to find and offer, to which I just say yes. British artist Mark John Smith recently wrote, Frank Colarius has nurtured a unique intertwining of architecture and community, amalgamating the needs of the public with the unique spaces of this building. In doing so, Frank and his team continue to pioneer a new type of public space, one more akin to a collective home than an institution. Frank is well known throughout the, she's allowed to heckle, throughout the city as one of the public library system's great branch managers. We're lucky to have him. He's made a stone structure come alive with activity that animates the community and has instituted successful educational programs for all segments of the population, including Jefferson Market University, GED and ESL classes, the Jefferson Market Players Theater, the Little Underground Gallery, Your Village, Your Story, Greenwich Village Oral History Project, the Greenwich Village Ephemera Project, and the Urban Explorers Group. Now, a New York Public Library professional reported that Frank and his staff are true civic champions. He's won virtually all of the internal NYPL awards at this point. They're going to have to create some new ones for him. He loves that he has resisted the siren song of a fancier admin job overseeing all the branches. He loves the true public service, meeting with the people. We are thrilled to present Frank Colarius with the 2017 Village Award for providing passionate, innovative, stellar service since 1999. Come on up here, Frank. Pick up your plaque. Woo-hoo! Congratulations.
I feel like Elizabeth Taylor at the Oscars. Except that GVSHP is far, 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 far more important an institution than the Oscars. So, thank you. I could talk for hours now. It's fun up here. So 18 years ago, I can't believe it, I was very, very, very young. When I you should laugh at that. Should start at Jefferson Market. I was at an event in the village, and a villager came up to me and looked me up and down. I was brand new and said, "So you're the current manager of the library?" I was like, okay. I actually loved it because then I learned that villagers are passionate, liberal, activized, political, know where the power is, and know how to get stuff done. And I really respected that. I loved it. I was like, why should you trust me? We're beginning a relationship. Relationships take time. I'm going to be here. I'm going to be here and make this for the people, because I then found out that that building, Jefferson Market Library, in the late 50s was abandoned. Pigeons and rats were running around in it. And the city, somebody wanted to knock it down and put up, you can fill in the blanks. The villagers said, no, that's not going to happen. They didn't let it happen. Landmarks didn't exist. Preservation didn't exist. I can only imagine how hard that must have been, but now that I know the village, I can believe they got it done. So, and not only did they save the building, they asked that it become a library, a public space for the people. And that's exactly what my guiding principle is. It's not mine, it's not NYPL's, it's yours. Come on! Woo! I should be a politician. Like Corey Johnson, who we love. I love Corey. So that's been my guiding principle. And I've been there so long that to me, the building is beautiful and everyone's proud of it and tourists love it, and it should be. It should be loved. But to me, the building is only beautiful because of the people who preserved it and the people who continue to use it. Because without the people, that building wouldn't mean anything and it wouldn't exist. So it's totally 100% for the people. When he said, I say yes, it's because I have to say yes, and I want to say yes because it's your building. It's a public space. I could say this for about 45 minutes, but I'm not going to. Thank you very, very much.
Oh, wherever you want to go. You go over and say hello to them if you want. So Frank asked, where do I go? And say, buddy, you go wherever you want to go, you know? Frank Hilarious. Congrats. Now, you can call our next awardee a Second Avenue love story. B&H Dairy. Has been a mainstay in the East Village since 1938, located at 127 2nd Avenue between 7th Street and St. Mark's Place, literally serving generations of Lower East Side and East Village residents and New Yorkers from every walk of life. Whether or not they come for the cash route, customers are mad for the B&H vegetarian menu. The Jewish, Polish, Ukrainian soul food, the pierogies, the knishes, the blintzes, the borscht and the lox, as well as the diner essentials. But it's the ambiance as much as the food that keeps people coming back. A little over a decade ago, B&H owner Fawzi Abdel-Wahed wanted a break from his crowded lunch counter and ventured across the avenue for a breather at the Stage. Could we hear for the Stage, the lamented Stage? A new immigrant from Poland, Alexander Smigielska, Ola for short, not only took his order, but wiped his smudged eyeglasses clean. That's the way a relationship begins, folks. That was it. Fawzi pursued Ola. A friendship was born. The couple married at Brooklyn Borough Hall in 2007. Ola became co-owner of B&H, and thus a former Catholic from Poland and a Muslim from Egypt become the proud standard bearers of a kosher restaurant founded by Jews in the late 1930s. It's a New York love story. Now, as we all know, B&H's success almost met its end on the afternoon of March 26, 2015, when an illegal gas connection caused an explosion that rocked the East Village, killing 2 innocent men. It leveled 3 buildings and shuttered businesses up and down the block for months, and some never recovered. B&H was forced to close for 5 months and nearly didn't reopen, but thanks to support from countless regulars, including Eleanor Nowen, who's here. She and I were there for the grand reopening. Raising tens of thousands of dollars through crowdsourcing and fundraising, they made a triumphant return in August 2015. We were there. While B&H was still closed from the blast, the daughter of one of the original owners noted in a letter of support, B&H was more than just a place to grab a quick bite. It was a place as close to home for so many who had left the only homes they had ever known behind. A place where new friendships were forged, stories were exchanged, and people sought comfort in the comfort food that reminded them of the lives they once had. This tradition of friendships forged and camaraderie among fellow patrons continues today, thanks to its present owners who are also seeking the American dream. As one ardent B&H fan stated, "I grew up in a household that believed food is love, and that's what you get at B&H. The restaurant is a special place, such a part of the fabric of the East Village neighborhood. It's fabric that holds neighborhoods together." For overcoming almost insurmountable adversity to serve food, love, and a community for 77 years, GVSHP is proud to award B&H Dairy with the 2017 Village Award. And here they are, Fawzi and Ola Abdel-Wahed.
I really want to say thank you so much for the touching word. I have the tears in my eyes. I don't believe somebody really appreciate and follow what we're doing and Really, B&H is a very, like a touch family place to us. Our customers is like our family. We know them by name, we know them, we love them. I never believe in my life, like the support and help and I get from them. They've been after me, they've been calling me and calling my family, support me, raising a fun campaign for me to reopen the store. I don't know what to say. I'm proud to be a part of the community. Thank you so much.
That's my first time, okay? Usually women talk too much. My husband say what he say. I have the most hard job. I wanna say first, Fauzi, myself, and the B&H Dairy family, thanks the Greenwich Village Society for Historic Preservation for our beautiful Village Award. Thank you. Of course, we will give you a place on our honor wall. We would like to give thanks to the people who has been very special to B&H over the years. First of all, who here is B&H customer? Please raise your hand. Thank you. Now I see you. All the best. We want to thank you, most of all you. Without your love and support over the years, especially when we are closed for 5 months after the 2nd Avenue fire, will not be here today. Your donation to the Small Nut and your caring campaigns plus personal donation help us pay for the many upgrades and the city required. From the day we bought B&H Dairy, we promised not to change the traditional vegetarian dairy kosher menu. It means challah, borscht, pierogi, stuffed cabbage, matzo brie, and every dish with love. To our customer, we love you from the bottom of our heart. Leo, he worked in the B&H for 27 years.
Yeah.
He be next to us for 5 months. He doesn't change his job. He don't leave us alone. After 5 months, he's back at B&H like all the rest of the employers. Rafi, he worked 20 years. Bernardo, 19. I'm 12. Mike, 11. Bogusha, 11. And Said, 6. So pretty much we are a big team, family team. Okay, Bernadette Nation, this is the lady from the Department of Small Business Services. She really saved B&H from the trouble what we get. Susan Stetzer, district manager of Community Board 3. Everyone at the Cooper Square community, Sarah Romanowski and Carol Crump at the East Village community. My heartbeat, sorry. For sitting for our first crowdfunding campaign. Lindsay Pitchell and Cole Clint, our neighbors Jimmy Carbon and Johnny Stensor, Ellen Nerman and Johnny Stenson. There you are. Okay, I make sure I correct it. Thank you so much. And so many others, but you know, it's too much. So if I write all this, you know, it's gonna be like till night. Okay, Florence Bergeson Goldberg, the daughter of the B&H founder A.B. Bergson and his wife Nini. Florence grew up on the right around the corner on the 6th Street. She gave us so many great old photos of B&H. So tonight she is not here, but next month we will make a party at the B&H. More than welcome everybody. Okay? And the one thing, I skipped 2 pages. You must know this. Okay. Eleanor, she got the t-shirt. Can you grab 1 second? Get up, please. Okay, we're gonna make it some games. Last thing, I promise, last thing. Okay, she have a name in the T-shirt. Hala por favor, right? So what is the first letter on the T-shirt? C. Okay, give me a second one. H. Give me a third.
A.
4.
L.
5.
L.
6.
A.
7.
H.
8. Yeah, it is.
Hala.
What the spell? Hala. Hala what? Hala por favor. Thank you so much.
That's wonderful. Congratulations. I'm so happy for you guys.
Thank you.
Beautiful, beautiful.
Thank you, Mama. Thank you so much. Thank you. Thank you so much.
Woo-woo! Hala, por favor. Our new cheer. I love it. I'm going to go over for a bowl of borscht right after. But there will be some nibbles. I'm not going to go right over. I'll just warm up a little bit, you know. Our next honoree is GOLES. Good old Lower East Side. GOLES was founded nearly 40 years ago amid the arson, abandonment, and economic crisis of 1977 New York. The name reflects its hope, stretching beyond the struggle of individual legal rights and personal security to a struggle for collective action and community self-determination for the people and cultures, spaces, and institutions that have historically made the Lower East Side one of the most unique, diverse, inclusive, and politically energetic neighborhoods in the world. GOLES began with a simple idea that tenants could organize to exercise their legal rights, defend their homes and their neighborhood. And 40 years later, GOLES continues to defend the neighborhood. GOLES advocates for quality, affordable housing for the people of the East Village and the Lower East Side, and for critical services that improve residents' quality of life. They seek justice, they seek equality, and GOLES provides services to help these people to keep their homes, understand their housing rights, and achieve job readiness. GOLES also offers assistance to seniors struggling with the challenges of living in a Lower East Side community facing development, displacement, and land-grabbing gentrification pressures like never before. Their work and this fight are as critical as ever. They urge you, and we do too, to organize, get involved in your own neighborhood and beyond. GVSHP is honored to present the good old Lower East Side with a 2017 Village Award for leading, inspiring, and providing critical services to the underserved and overlooked residents of the Lower East Side and East Village for nearly 40 years. Let's hear it for GOLES.
So I always get so nervous whenever I have to do these events. So my name is Damaris Reyes, and I am the Executive Director of Good Old Lower East Side. I'm a lifelong resident of the neighborhood, and I raised both my children here, and I'll probably die here. What can I say? First, I want to thank GVHSP for all of its tremendous work, its tremendous effort. We've had the honor of working alongside GVHSP for various different projects. It's groups like GVSHP that help us to do and work and focus on the things that we focus on, right? We talk a lot about preservation, and it's so critically important to preserve our history and remember where we came from, but the people who make up the neighborhoods are also equally important. And so that's why we make such a great team whenever we've had the honor and privilege of working together. GOLES serves about 3,000 people each year with direct services, and we reach about 10,000 people. We put on about 100 different events that teach people about their housing rights, land use, zoning, and just even like what is happening in the neighborhood, because it is so much, and our neighborhood and our community truly is under siege. You know, we talk a lot about gentrification, and oftentimes when people think about gentrification, they think that the people who are fighting against it are saying, please people, don't come to our community. We're not really saying that. We honor the history of the Lower East Side, its immigrant culture, and all of those who have come to create this wonderful melting pot that we are. But what we are saying is that we wish to and want to and have a right to remain an inclusive community. And that it is all of us from all walks of life that make the Lower East Side, the East Village, Lower Manhattan, the fantastic place and sought after, desirable neighborhood that the whole world is fighting us to try to get at. So here we are nearly 40 years later. We're actually 39. We'll have our 40th anniversary next year. We have our annual celebration next week, June 15th. And so, we've done a lot of work that's led to significant victories in policy, public consciousness, as well as, seemingly small everyday wins with immeasurable broad ripple effects. I want to just go over a few of those. For example, the kind of work that we do has led to defending residents at a building 444 East 13th Street. Most of them were immigrant residents. They were being harassed by their landlord. We were able to stop the harassment, get an agreement, and win them a $1 million settlement. We've been a part of collective efforts like working together with all of our other housing allies to win for the second year in a row a historic 0% increase on one-year rent increases. We have also worked on issues like saving Mitchell-Lama buildings and keeping them from opting out of the subsidized programs, putting hundreds of residents at risk of being priced out. We've also spearheaded community engagement around issues like coastal resiliency under the Rebuild by Design program, and we were able to successfully gain nearly $1 billion for the East Side and Lower Manhattan Coastal Resiliency Project. And then we co-founded, after Hurricane Sandy, a network called LES Ready, which is really about preparing for disasters, working on mitigation, and dealing with the impacts of climate change. Nearly 25 Lower Manhattan organizations are active members in this coalition, and we're really proud to be a part of this work. We were also able, because of our network, to be responsive during the Second Avenue explosion, and we were able to help and serve nearly 100 of the survivors with small grants, furniture, just sometimes an ear to talk to, goods, and other services. And I could go on and on and on, but I'm not going to do that because we'll be here all night, and there's like 4 other honorees, right? But I do want to say that today, just today, we had a grand victory. And so we have been working with our allies and residents all over the neighborhood on the Croman Coalition. And if you know about this issue, you know that this landlord owns hundreds of buildings and has been harassing residents for a really long time. Well, today, Mr. Croman was sentenced to 1 year in prison. a $5 million fine, and there's still a civil suit pending against him. None of this work is possible without the residents, without every one of you, without all the folks that come every day and join us at a protest, at a rally, at a press conference, even stuffing envelopes, you name it. This is the way we do things. We do things together. We do things united because these issues are bigger than any one of us, and it is going to take all of us to be able to respond. And so I'll end with this. On the south side of this neighborhood, on Cherry Street, on South Street, near Rutgers, near Montgomery, near Clinton, I'm sure many of you know that area. That community is really under attack right now. More than 4,000 market rate apartments are slated to come in towers that will be as tall as 70 stories and above. This is landfill. We've already experienced sinkholes, and we've experienced doorways and windows and from neighboring buildings that will not align because the building is settling too fast because of the pile driving. We are part of a process to fight this. And even if you may not live near it, and you may live 10, 5, 20 blocks away, know that this is part of the last grab. It's not the only thing that's coming. There's way more. But this is the kind of fight that we need all of our neighbors to stand behind us on. Because when one part of the community is under attack, it is only a matter of time, as we have seen. So I urge you all to remember that it takes one person to start organizing, but it takes a village to fight these developers, these greedy corporations, and right? and corrupt politicians, right?
There it is. There it is.
So I thank GVHSP for giving us this opportunity tonight. I want to thank all of the staff and the members at GOLES. This is Robin. She does a tremendous job with helping our residents find jobs. And Luis and other people are in the audience. This is not me, and I hope that they would all come up because I'm always the one showing my face, right? But GOLES is not Damaris. GOLES is all of us. GOLES is you. Please stand united with us as we continue into the next 40 years fighting for our community.
Thanks, Damaris. You're the best, Carmen. That was great.
Do we go that way? Shake hands. Go this way.
Thank you, Damaris. Thank you, Robin. Thank you, good old Lower East Side. La luta continua. Oh. Our next awardee is Patisserie Claude. A pastry shop lifted from the streets of Paris, transported 3,627 miles to West 4th Street. The Village Treasure was opened for business over 35 years ago by Claude, a French-born baker of impeccable pastries and viennoiserie. I just like saying that word. As well as saying croissants, which are buttery, and quiche, which are filled delicately with ham or mushrooms or spinach or endive, the tarts that brim with fresh plum or apricots. Don't miss the eclairs, millefeuille or pain au chocolat. The welcome is warm, the coffee is strong, the tiny storefront is a slice of Paris in Greenwich Village. Patisserie Claude exists for purists, which I know this is an entire audience of. They will not sell salads, soups, or sandwiches. Only pastries and coffee. In 2008, sown by the internet, panic spread through the village as word got out that Claude was retiring. to the greener pastures of France or South America or someplace. I don't know exactly, but at least, thankfully, 22 years prior to that, Claude had begun training Pablo, the patisserie's baker. Pablo Valde, Claude's assistant, and he learned in the secret, time-honored perfectionist techniques of authentic French baking. Pablo has been the owner since Claude left, continuing and building upon that beloved tradition. The delectable baked products remain of the highest Parisian standards, a rarity in this age of cookie-cutter bakeries and mass-produced goods. Treating everyone with courtesy and respect, Pablo is one of the nicest people you're ever going to meet, and we're happy to present this award to Patisserie Claude for providing village residents with an irreplaceable slice of authentic Parisian fare for over 35 years. Accepting the award for Patisserie Claude is the owner, Pablo Valde. Patisserie Claude.
Good evening. Wow, incredible. I'm Pablo Jr., his oldest son. This is Pablo Sr. We are so grateful and honored to have this award. You know, it's crazy. My father started 32 years ago with Claude. He came from Dominican Republic with no education, with not even a word how to speak English. And he started with Claude. What a chemistry, a French guy and a Dominican. What a chemistry, huh? But my dad, he's a very hardworking man, and we want to thank the community, and thank you for the support, and I hope that y'all keep coming to Patisserie Claude to help my dad out. Thank you. He wants to say a little bit, something real quick.
First, thank God. I said, thank you for the neighborhoods, for helping me day by day, month by month, year by year. Thank you, neighborhoods. Thank you very much.
Pablo Jr. and Pablo Sr.
Thank you. Thank you.
The Pablos of Patisserie Claude. Our next award is not a store, it's an experience. Have you been to Dinosaur Hill? The owner, Pam Pierre, has created a welcoming environment where children and parents are encouraged to touch and have fun with the merchandise, which is comprised of unique and handmade items often not found anywhere else. Since 1983, Pam's goal has been to provide toys that demand involvement, to encourage learning and creativity, to move, make, color, build, connect, and puzzle things out. One of her major objectives nowadays is to try to interest kids enough to stay out of cyberspace long enough to learn by doing, develop hand-eye skills, to become makers and builders. Despite great competitive pressure from big box stores and the internet, Dinosaur Hill thrives through personal service and a warm, welcoming atmosphere. Pam and her staff have an uncanny ability to find the perfect gift for any age and occasion. Some of the items sold are handmade by artisans right in the neighborhood, mostly women at home with children who have, over the years, made much of the wonderful clothing and accessories for the store. Pam is also active at the Green Oasis Community Garden, participates in reading encouragement programs at local schools, providing gifts to children who complete a reading challenge. Pam's soul stirs musically, and a couple of times each week she plays flute with the New Horizons band directed by Brandon Tesh. The band is for people over 50 and is about to celebrate its 10th anniversary at the 3rd Street Music School. GVSHP is happy to present Dinosaur Hill owner Pam Peer with a 2017 Village Award for providing one-of-a-kind service and products to several generations of parents and children in an independently owned business that has bucked the trend and showed how a small, hands-on store with community values can still succeed in our village. Please welcome Pam Peer and Dinosaur Hill.
Hi. Thank you, Greenwich Village Society for Historic Preservation. I'm ecstatically happy to receive this award for Dinosaur Hill. I thank the creative, warm, and wacky neighborhood for being absolutely the best place on earth. This Kanga and Rue are from the store, and they originated on East 6th Street in Manhattan. They're made by NoHo, who's made things for the store for over 30 years. And this Tibetan snow lion is all the way from Tibet. And I had the luck to be asked to go there to talk to the makers about these things, and I learned a lot and loved it. So, hello from Tibet. I like to make things, and I like to see people making things. I've always encouraged children to be engaged in building and creating, and I'm often thrilled and amazed with things that people make and bring into the store so that I can bring them to other people. Thank you to the Plost Foundation, the Ukrainian Boy Scouts, which owns the building where I've been treated generously and protectively, and to Veselka, our dear neighbor. Dinosaur Hill is a place where wonderful people and ideas come together. In the older, slower days, we used to be able to hang it out and yak it up. And I think of many people who were in and out of the store then, like many of whom RIP. Russell, the drunken poet and scaffold worker who came in to paint the store. Santa Bill, a Jew who grew up in Brooklyn where his father made habits for nuns, and who retired from being a photographer and came to be our own East Village Santa Claus. Dean, the dinosaur man, who came in on several occasions and talked to a group of kids about dinosaurs and answered their questions. The Consons, who put their magic act on the street when we were transitioning from the second store to the third store. Tony, the artist, who had his first show in Dinosaur Hill's window. Matthew and friends, who put on a puppet show. And the creative Canova sisters, who made clothes and mobiles and curious animals all the time. One of them was living in the street. I don't know how they did it. Nancy Patique, on whom we depended for clothes for over 30 years, and she finally closed up her store, so we sorely miss her. And now we have Helen, who comes every year during the holidays to play the accordion and sing, and sometimes we sing along with her, which is great. People who have worked at the store have contributed with their flair for drama, love of people, and interested in toys, especially Naomi, Mary Louise, Doris, Monica, Raynell, Megan, Allison, and presently Alicia, Judy, Kairu, Monica, and Django, who drops in from time to time. Thank you, and RIP Butterfly, Brownie, Razzie, and Pip, canine friends who kept us company for 40 years. Dinosaur Hill is extremely fortunate to have a very wonderful customer base The people who come in and out every day keep us going, and we try to keep them interested and going as well, and entertained by providing them with the most aesthetic, stimulating, and entertaining wonderments we can find. As a kid, I remember reading a story about a man, I think he was a carver, who never retired. And someone asked him why he was still working, and he said, "I never worked, and I never will." And I often feel like that. They'll have to take me away in a box. Meanwhile, thank you to the neighborhood, which is filled with wonderful people who've graced me with their presence as customers and friends. Onward and resist. Keep your eye on our window for the Pangolin Parade. I knew Elizabeth. I worked with Elizabeth at downtown.
Yes, okay. Pam Pier, Dinosaur Hill. They are the link connecting expression, individual and shared. The public theater has long surpassed being described as a local theater. 54 Tonys, 152 Obies, 42 Drama Desk Awards, 5 Pulitzer Prizes. 55 public theater productions have moved to Broadway, among them Hair, A Chorus Line, Bring Into Noise, Bring Into Funk, and Hamilton, and its most recent Pulitzer Prize-winning play, Sweat. Lynn Nottage. The public began in 1954 by Joseph Papp, its legendary founder, as the Shakespeare Workshop. It moved into its landmark building on Lafayette Street in 1967 with the world premiere of Hair. It's not by accident that the public has found its home in the Village. When Joe Papp was looking for a place to build his dream, he sought a place, as he put it, where theater could live, a place to go every day. The public stands today as a testament to the early years of the Landmarks Law. The building opened in 1856 as the Astor Library and served as home to the Hebrew Immigrant Aid Society from 1921 to 1964. As Ada Louise Huxtable said in 1966, New York City has scored its first major preservation success under its 18-month-old Landmarks Law with the dramatic announcement of Joseph Papp's plans to purchase the old Astor Library in Lafayette Street as the Shakespeare Festival's new home. Scheduled for the Wreckers' Ball 6 months ago, the miraculous last-ditch rescue of the Victorian red brick and brownstone structure is a bit of appropriate 19th century melodrama calculated to make any 20th century cynic's heart melt. Papp, a preservationist to the core, would go on to help found the Save the Theaters group in the 80s in an effort to prevent the loss of historic theaters in Manhattan's theater district. This beloved New York institution is more than just a theater and has served one of the largest and most diverse New York City audiences for nearly 60 years. Now led by Oscar Eustis and Patrick Willingham, the guiding principle of the public has always been that free culture and art is a birthright of all New Yorkers and that everyone should have access to the arts. The public currently houses 5 theaters, Joe's Pub, the Delacorte, and the Mobile Shakespeare Unit, which brings Shakespeare to prisons, homeless shelters, and community centers around the city. And they also have a public works program and produce the free Shakespeare in the Park. As the public celebrates its 50th anniversary this year, the 50th anniversary of the opening of their building on Lafayette Street, I am proud to present the public with the 2017 Village Award for building a world-renowned institution of theater and the arts and serving as one of the Village's cultural beacons. Accepting the award for the public is Rosalind Barber. Here for the public, please.
Hi, thank you so much for welcoming me. And Oscar Eustace and Patrick Willingham send their best to all of you. And thank you so much for this award. I know that they're in awe of everyone that's been celebrated tonight. You're literally feeding the people, and you're making this a more equitable society, and you're making it fun and a wonderful place to live. And we're all just so proud to be your neighbors. And we especially want to thank the Greenwich Village Historic Preservation Society for all of their wonderful work in the community. I'm so honored to be among you tonight and with you and so many of the organizations and the elected officials and everyone that makes this neighborhood unique and vital to New York City. We're so proud to be a part of your community. As you mentioned, this fall we'll be celebrating the public's 50th anniversary of the opening of the Public Theater on Astor Place. We opened our doors in October 1967 with the groundbreaking musical Hair that you saw the image of there. And we just feel so privileged to be able to tell the stories of the community that lives and dies in this area. And it's through stories like Hair and The Normal Heart, and through our more recent work, such as Hamilton, Fun Home, Here Lies Love, and Sweat, that we try to tell the stories of people here in the city and throughout the country as honestly as we can, and to bring that to a larger audience through Broadway and through many other applications. We're just so honored to be a part of your community and for the partnership that all of you provide by coming to see our work or just coming to visit our building. And we'd like to thank Andrew Brennan and Arthur Levin and all the staff of your wonderful society for all that you do. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Rosalind Barber and the Public Theater. Regina Kellerman was GVSHP's first executive director. She was an architectural historian and passionate preservationist. Her work laid the foundation for the designation of several of New York City's first historic districts and individual landmarks. We honor her each year by awarding a Village Award for a significant contribution to the field of preservation. St. Vincent's Hospital served the community for over 150 years, and many fought hard to keep it. Out of the ashes of its loss, however, have come a beautifully renovated healthcare facility, a new public park, and a gathering place to memorialize those touched by the AIDS crisis. The winners of the 2017 Regina Kellerman Award and our final award for the evening have combined to transform and memorialize a critical part of the village: Lennox Health Greenwich Village, St. Vincent's Triangle Park, and the New York City AIDS Memorial. The Joseph Curran Building of the National Maritime Union was designed by Albert C. Ledner and dedicated in 1964. It evokes seafaring themes, including the building's prominent portholes, and its inverted form was inspired by Frank Lloyd Wright's Guggenheim Museum. In 1973, the building was sold to St. Vincent's Hospital and was renamed the Edward and Teresa O'Toole Medical Services Building. After years of serving St. Vincent's Hospital, sadly, the building was in bad shape. Its facade was falling apart and unsympathetically covered in tiles never intended for the building. Sadder, the hospital itself was in bad shape, and after going through one bankruptcy in the early 2000s, it went through another bankruptcy in 2010, this time for good. When Northwell Health took over the building, they consulted with the original architect, Albert Ledner, for his input on the renovations. Their guiding principle was to respect the colorful and unique history of the facility and to build a state-of-the-art standalone emergency room, all while reflecting the nautical theme throughout the building. They restored it to its original condition, stripped away the unsympathetic alterations which had been made, and refurbished the facade, the undulating glass blocks at the ground floor, and the windows. Perhaps most importantly, they brought back some, if not all, much-needed medical services that had been lost with the hospital's closure. Prior to 2010, for many years, the almost half-acre triangle bordered by 7th Avenue, Greenwich Avenue, and West 12th Street was filled with mechanicals and trash from the hospital, supplemented by a Spartan flower garden along 7th Avenue that was largely inaccessible to the public. Over the past several years, M. Paul Friedberg and Partners, MPFP, has transformed this unusable triangle into a cozy, verdant haven in the middle of a crowded intersection, serving as a lovely neighborhood respite. With its winding walkways and rolling landscape, the modestly sized space manages to offer quiet contemplation, people watching, strolling, and a sense of respite, in spite of being just footsteps from pulsing intersections and honking traffic, and fulfills the long unfulfilled promise made decades earlier that this space would serve as a public park. The northwestern section of the park was dedicated last year as the New York City AIDS Memorial, to remember the more than 100,000 New Yorkers who have died from AIDS and those who loved and cared for them. The site could not be more appropriate for such a memorial. This was where St. Vincent's Hospital housed the city's first and largest AIDS ward and is often considered the symbolic epicenter for the disease. Studio I of Brooklyn, New York, led by Mateo Paiva, Lily Lim, and Esteban Ehrlich, were selected to become the park's architect and designed an 18-foot steel canopy as the dramatic gateway to the new St. Vincent's Hospital Park in the West Village. The engraving in the paver stones of the memorial was text selected and designed by world-renowned visual artist Ginny Holzer and featured selections from Walt Whitman's Song of Myself from Leaves of Grass. It's been credited as representing the core of Whitman's poetic vision. The hope for the text of the memorial is that it will have emotional permanence, with the idea that the poem will still move people hundreds of years from now. The memorial design, combined with the adjacent park's open plaza, is meant to be both commemorative and serve as community park. There are no definite dates, no victims, said the firm of the memorial in a statement. In our design process, we emphasize the changing and varied ways through which AIDS affects us personally and as a society. New York City Parks Commissioner Silver said, NYC AIDS Memorial Park at St. Vincent's Triangle stands at the crossroads of the richly historical West Village. Here we honor and celebrate St. Vincent Hospital's more than 150 years of service to our city, as well as the countless New Yorkers impacted by AIDS, those we have lost, those who live with HIV/AIDS, and those who continue to battle against fear and ignorance. GVSHP presents the 2017 Regina Kellerman Village Award to Lenox Health Greenwich Village for restoring the former Maritime and O'Toole building to a beautiful new facility, to the St. Vincent's Triangle Park for transforming an underutilized and forbidding corner of the West Village into a much-used, much-loved park, and to the NYC AIDS Memorial for building the first significant public space dedicated to the AIDS crisis in New York City. Accepting this award is Dr. Alex Hellinger, Executive Director of Lenox Health Greenwich Village, Rick Parisi, MPFP architect responsible for St. Vincent's Triangle Park design, and NYC AIDS Memorials founders Christopher Tepper and Paul Kelterborn, as well as a member of their board, Richard Grossman.
So I will say one thing. When I was listening to B&H and Patisserie Claude, I was getting very hungry. And by the way, my wife is Dominican, so I'm going to come by and get a few Dominican pastries. It'll make her really, really happy. That'll be great. So let me ask a question to the audience by a show of hands. How many of you folks live downtown Manhattan? How many of you know the building that you see up there? All right, so you heard the formal names, right? The Koran building, the O'Toole building. Can anybody tell me what some of the informal names were for this building? Just shout them out. The Overbite building I heard many, many times. One of the other names I heard it called was the ugliest building in Manhattan. Yeah, I knew it had potential, so it's doing well. I do want to, I'm really, really grateful for this. This is amazing to be a part of this this neighborhood, this community. You all are a really fun bunch of folks. I've been having a blast tonight, and I've loved seeing all of this. But we did have a lot of folks that were involved in this, so I'm accepting this on behalf of all of them. Architects, multiple architects, Perkins Eastman, Turner Construction, our own Northwell folks really, really did an amazing job. And as they said, we did actually go out to visit Albert Ledner, and he told us what his vision was, and we did our best, our real best, to integrate everything that he spoke about into this building. Is there any ability to go back a slide or two? Keep going, keep going, keep going. I'll tell you when to stop. It's a ways back there. So what I want to keep going. What I want to put. So stop right there. Go back. The last one. There you go. So if you can see this, everything in here. There's when you first walk in, there's these sail-like architecture up there. That's hiding all the mechanicals. It's also sound reducing. The floors are browns and greens and blues. Representative of sand and deep and shallow water. The circular patterns we have all over this was Albert Ledner's feeling that it's a more democratic shape, and he wanted that because he felt everybody had a say. So we really tried to incorporate all of that, and I think did a good job. I will tell you that when we first opened, and that picture I literally took the day before we opened. I had two questions in my mind at that time. One was, or thoughts, it'll probably never look this good again. However, we have kept it looking just that good. I take a picture from the same standpoint every year, and it continues to look really good. We work to do that. We want it to be aesthetically pleasing, not scary, like a hospital facility, a hospital ER. We want it to be that sort of healing type of visual. The other thing was, would people come, right? Because when St. Vincent's closed, people had found their health care in other areas for many years. I will tell you, we're almost 3 years in with the emergency department that we opened on July 17th of 2014, and we have seen about 100,000 people in that emergency department. And I can tell you, and I've seen it, saved many, many lives in this neighborhood, in this community. Yeah. The staff are truly incredible. The vast majority of our doctors actually live in this neighborhood, and in a moment's notice will come in. But it's just been amazing for me to see. It's been amazing to be a part of this community, and I'm just really humbled by all of you recognizing that. But we really tried to do the best that we could with this neighborhood. Just so you know, there's also now a full imaging center in there. Complete female section of that with breast mammography, 3D mammography, all state-of-the-art stuff. We are opening up a surgery center this year, physician's office on the 6th floor, some community space. Everybody walks in, they say, this is much bigger than what it looks outside. And we're actually opening up other physician offices in the neighborhood around there. So really the idea was to build a truly integrated medical model, and that's what we tried to do. So I do want to thank you all for this. It really, really means a lot to be accepted. This neighborhood, like I said, is incredible. I do want to thank Corey Johnson as well, council member. He's been phenomenal. We met with Corey when we first came down here, and what he told me at that time was, whatever you need, you let us know. We want to bring healthcare back to the village. So, thank you, Corey. And I do want to thank my coworker, Wayne Coadler. He's here with me. He's our community relations director and is constantly in this community, going to the schools, reaching out to folks. And he has me on a treadmill, always going to different places to speak about what we're doing. So thank you, Wayne. You do an amazing job. Thank you again so much, everybody. Thank you. Thank you.
Good evening. We'll try and make this really quick. I know it's been a long, long night. It's way past 8 o'clock, I guess, right? When we came to this project, I think it's about 8 or 9 years ago, we looked at the triangle, and it was a 16,000 square foot space that you couldn't access. It had some flowers in it, some vegetable gardens in there, and certain people could use it. Certain people in the neighborhood used it. But basically, it was an inaccessible space. And our goal, our vision at that time was to take that 16,000 square feet and turn it into, a classic Greenwich Village Plaza Park, one for everybody. That wasn't really that easy at that time because there was a lot of challenging pieces to it. There was a building below it. We had to remove the building below it. Our goal was to give it back, our development team goal was to give it back to New York City as a New York City public space. Working for many years with the community board, and many of the people in the community came to a lot of these meetings. We came up with a design that I think is the design for all of the neighborhood. And when I walk through it, weekly, it's very rewarding to see children playing in the water feature, see, elderly people sitting, and people of all ages. So that was the largest reward for us until we got this. Because to get an award like this from the neighborhood, from the Historic Society in the neighborhood for a new park was really, really honoring to us as a firm. So, I'd like to thank the society for that. For thinking of us. We just tried to give public space back and meaningful public space for everybody. And I'd like to thank the team here. The memorial team came on board, a little bit after we did, and we had a really interesting time working this out together, and I think it was a very successful project for all, and hopefully for all of you. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, everyone, for the award tonight. We're really honored to receive the award tonight from the Greenwich Village Society for Historic Preservation, which is really the preeminent historical society in the city and the one that has done the most work in preserving LGBT history throughout the city. It's really been through Andrew Berman's leadership, and I don't know how to stress how important that is. That just 6 years ago, when Paul and I started the effort to build the New York City AIDS Memorial, there were no locally recognized landmarks. There were very few plaques or other historical interpretation signs about LGBT history. Both the positive things like where PFLAG was founded, and the fact that the first SIP-in was one of the first civil disobedience acts of the LGBT community happened at the Julius Bar, but also things like what we're commemorating, which is the loss of so many people in our community. So I think I'm really very personally proud to get this award from GVSHP, who's been just such a leader in the area of LGBT historic recognition. And I'm also really honored to get this award with Alex from Lennox Health and Rick Parisi, because not only is Lennox Health a donor to the memorial and that they're investing in the community in a lot of ways, but also invested in making the memorial possible, but also Rick really went out of his way during the design process. I think one of the things we heard from the community very strongly was that ultimately they wanted the memorial and the park to feel integrated, obviously be distinct, but work together. And Rick went out of his way as both a good designer and a good human being to help make that happen. My notes So I already started thanking Andrew, but I also wanted to say that he was an early advocate for the idea that it was appropriate and important to integrate some meaningful commemoration that was lacking in the city to the history of the AIDS crisis in this spot, because he recognized that it was a unique space that really sat at the nexus of AIDS history, both because it was near the LGBT community center, St. Vincent's, and a lot of homes and clinics and things where so much of the early advocacy happened. I also, know that AIDS impacted everyone in the village in one way or another. So we're really proud to have permanently created this beautiful tribute that will last forever in the village. The last thing I'll say is that it obviously is here to commemorate the over 100,000 New Yorkers who died, men, women, and children. But just as importantly, like the Doughboy in Abingdon Square that commemorates the men who went to war, this memorial really commemorates the community leadership, the neighbors who helped neighbors, the caregivers who helped strangers, people who helped their dying partners, and then ultimately the advocates who many of the groups started right in the immediate area, like at the LGBT Community Center, ACT UP, that ultimately helped change the trajectory of the epidemic. So that's a community story just as much as the people we lost that we really need to cherish and acknowledge. With that, I would like to also thank the most thanked person in the room because he's done so much for the community, Corey Johnson. The memorial wouldn't be here without his leadership. And then I'd like to turn over the mic to the co-founder of the memorial, Paul Kelterborn, and I hope everyone, as I do that, can wish him a happy birthday. It's his birthday that he's spending here tonight. Thank you.
Thank you. Yes. It is my birthday today, and there's no place I'd rather be. So, thank you. We wanted to create a memorial that not only called out the historic significance of the site, as Chris mentioned, but that was also functional and additive for the park. And we think that the design team, led by Studio AI, and of course Rick Parisi, did exactly that by creating a beautiful sculpture that serves as a shelter for the park and that can be enjoyed both for commemoration and for contemplation. As a next step, we're looking forward to working with organizations like GVSHP and other local preservation groups as we develop new programs to leverage the physical memorial as an opportunity for learning about the history of the crisis. Thank you again. We're thrilled to be recognized in this way and for this honor. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Thanks, listen, you guys are a place that's new becomes part of our history, and we couldn't be happier and sadder, So that's it, folks. There's a party downstairs. You've been to the 2017 Village Awards, and you will never forget it. The meeting is adjourned. Get something to eat, meet each other, make new friends, and march together.